What up, everybody, and welcome to Late Night Live number 108. How's everybody doing today? What up, Oja Swanny? Hello, hello. What up, Miss Marilyn? Yes, happy Valentine's Day to you as well. I must admit, I did nothing Valentine's-y today. I didn't write anything Valentine's-y. I didn't do anything. I completely forgot that today was Valentine's Day until I woke up and saw all the Valentine's posts on Instagram. Oops. And then I thought to myself, you should make a Valentine's post. But then it was too late. What's going on, Skeet? How are you this evening, day, morning? I can't remember what time it is for you, Skeet. Taco Tuesday, I mean, that's a great use of or a great thing to do on your Valentine's Day. That's nice. Were they regular letters or Valentine's letters, Marilyn? I wrote, how many letters? Did I write 2 letters today? I wrote one letter today is all I wrote. I prepped a couple others, but it wasn't a Valentine's letter. Just a catch up on NaCoWriMo and correspondence in general. I'll show you guys here. I have a I went and organized all of my people that I need to write. This is my box of people I have to write. We'll go down that list. I am rather behind in my correspondence. Oh, happy anniversary, Skeet. When I get warmed up, I'll have to write happy anniversary to you. That's fun. Anniversary being on Valentine's Day. That makes the holiday a little special. That's awesome. Oh, that is okay, Marilyn. I'm owing you letters these days. I don't feel like you owe me anything at the moment. I definitely owe you some correspondence. All right, what do I gotta do before we get started? T, check. Spinning top, check. I don't even know if that's in frame today. Hourglass, check. Just for fun, why not? Correspondence is great. Whoa, why is this so loud today? Can you guys hear the top? I feel like it's loud today. 30th anniversary, Skeet. That's exciting. Congratulations. Can't hear the top? Okay, good. It's far away, so I shouldn't be that audible, but... Oh, what did I forget to have here? I need a glide sheet. And it's on the other side of my couch. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. I will return momentarily. I have to go to this side of my couch. Get a glide sheet. Get in a glide sheet. Nobody can see me. Looking through my papers to find a glide sheet. Where are my glide sheets? I cannot. Where did I put them? Oh my goodness. Glide sheets, glide sheets, glide sheets. Where the heck? It's a mystery. I don't know where my glide sheets are. I usually have a stack of them. What? What is going on? I guess I can make another one. Well, let it be known, Michael Ward is not organized. I thought they would have a whole stack of them, but depending on what paper I'm writing, I use them so the paper matches. Huh. Well, I don't know where they are. I'm gonna make one. I suppose. Well, here's how I make glide sheets. Very not complicated at all. Fold a piece of paper lengthwise. Give it a couple burnishes with the thumb. As soon as I finish my live, I'm gonna find them. So I stacked a whole bunch of them. Guess it's not the worst thing in the world to have more than one, more than a stack. So guide sheet is already underneath. This is what I'm using now is a glide sheet. And I'll explain the reason for that in a second. It's 100% not a necessary tool. Happy Valentine's Day, Lurker James. Okay, we'll put that back there. And the reason I use these is when you write, I'm writing movement writing, I need to have free movement, and what happens when I get to the edge of my paper, my fingernails will start hooking on the paper, which is not the biggest deal in the world, but if I want to write all the way to the edge, it's nice to just have a glide sheet underneath. And it also just stops the part of my hand that touches the paper from just getting oils or things like that. If my hands, I don't have oily hands, but regular skin oils and whatnot, they keep the page clean of those. So like I said, not a 100% necessary tool, but I do use one most of the time when I write. And I've gotten used to it, so now when I don't have one, it feels weird. Alright, let's get warmed up. Some penmen, like if you ever talk to Marcus Carlini, for example, he'll talk about seasoning his glide sheet, like getting it, like all burnishing it and getting it smooth, and he takes it to a whole other level that I don't fully understand. But yeah, some penmen really, really like them. What up, Olivia? Hello, hello. So what are we working on today? On Instagram I put Valentine's poems, some signature practice. I do want to do a little bit of practice on this week's Discord challenge, which is the shaded capital E in ornamental penmanship. That's going to be something that I want to work on a little bit. Do my homework for the weekly challenge. That's understandable. If you've had enough dip pen, dive into the fountain pen. I could ask AI what to write again. We can definitely do that. Wonderful. This, of course, was the challenge for the past couple weeks. First the stem, and then adding the second stroke to it, like so. Ooh, that's the exact, I don't know if you guys can see that. It's not a sharp turn on the bottom, but it's almost touching. That's basically the exact lower portion of the W. That gets a happy face, because that's basically what I'm always going for. Feels good to hit that. Yeah. Ah, the egg shape or the stem shape. So that was, what was it, 2 weeks ago? That was the challenge. My recommendation for working on that specific shape is doing just in hairline. And when you analyze, like if we do the whole thing just in outline, we're making this shape here, cutting way farther to the left than just a standard oval, and we need to have that motion in order so that when we press, then we get our slightly asymmetrical shade. So I would work in hairline to get unshaded, to get that shape. Cutting in the left side to get more of that, I guess we can call it a teardrop shape, I suppose. So that then the shade would fit in right there. So I would do that in hairline till that becomes habitual, and then you start lightly adding pressure. And one thing that I could say for anybody that's practicing shading in general, don't be scared, or don't think that you have to dive into a super heavy shade right off the get-go. It's great. It can be a great training exercise. What up, Brian? Welcome, welcome. It can be a great training exercise to go from your hairline to just get that slight shade. Then as you get more comfortable, you can start making that shade a little bigger. And then if you're feeling really comfortable, you can dive in. And really, that's probably too big and my shade's way too high. But great exercise to go through so that you're never working at a habitual, this is my default. Have it so you can do lightly shaded or heavily shaded. So that it's up to you. You guys have heard me talk many times about not letting things be habitual, but training to do them exactly how we want them. Everything we do is on purpose. That's a great exercise for getting your shades to be intentional and on purpose. That admittedly is probably, that's a very big shade. I don't shade that big very often. It can be fun to go big, though. And then this week's challenge. Where's this week's challenge? I'll load it on my phone. It's the capital E. We're going back to a number of weeks ago when we were doing the direct oval. So this week we have a direct oval, but a smaller direct oval. So we have the capital E, or my personal preference of the capital E's is Lupfer's variation. I like very, very much. This is our goal today. My difficult, or not just today, this is our goal this week for this week's Discord challenge. But for me, the tough part, I get in, or this is where I have my issue. And some penmen would even have this be hairline all the way until it crossed here, and then they would start the shade, which I find incredibly difficult to do. Of all the letters, I find that right here is where I nib snag the most, coming up out of this, going into the shade. This little loop, when I get to this top portion, my nib likes to dig into the paper. So, we are practicing that today. Or this week, I should say. We're not going to do that the whole or all day. We're not going to spend on that E, but I'm going to give it a few a few swings. Wait! Lurker James, why are your fingers frozen? It can't be that cold in Vegas. Why are your fingers frozen? Are you drinking an iced latte? Hello, Mum. Welcome. It's another thing that I often do. This first little loop, it's on a crazy angle. 41 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, but okay. That is cold, I guess. 60 inside is not that cold. Do you not have heat? Are you living in a cardboard box, Lurker James? Do you need somebody? Do you need us to help you? What is going on here? You could wear gloves. What about fingerless gloves? You could be the cool fingerless gloved penman. Maybe that's what the penmanship world needs. Maybe we need a fingerless gloved penman. That's just his thing, or her thing, or their thing, or whoever wants to do it. But fingerless gloves, there's a niche in the penmanship world. You can barely type, you can't write. What is going on, Lurker James? You're freezing up. Okay, there's the idea. And we just want that shade to live from there to there, which is rather challenging. I know they make fingerless gloves, but I haven't seen a penman that's like their thing. Everybody has a thing. I don't know what my thing is. Bowler hat and bow tie. That's my thing. So I can't be the fingerless glove penman, because I'm the bowler hat and bow tie penman. Not wearing a bow tie today, but... So, who's gonna be the fingerless penman? We need to have penmen of all niches. For some reason. See, I get... that little, you can see it on both sides of the shade there, that little, it's not smooth. My transition down is not smooth. Yeah, it's right there when the shade starts. That's true. The digital calligraphers have a writing glove they use. It's like the pinky glove. I wonder if anybody has bedazzled or Swarovski crystalled their writing glove. I kinda doubt it, but maybe. Not the fingerless penman, but I guess, I mean, most people in here would know, but you probably don't know, Mum. There was a famous penman back in the day called the handless penman. J.C. Ryan, I believe. Hopefully I'm not messing up his name, whose arms were cut off just below the elbow. And he was, well, better than most of the penmen alive today. And he had no hands. There was an article in the Business Educator about a 12-year-old boy who had no similar situation. His arms had been amputated, or he was born that way, I can't remember. But he was submitting samples to the Business Educator. He was only 12. And his writing was very nice. Well, I didn't mean to say fingerless penman. I guess I meant to say fingerless glove penman. That was the intention. Whoops. Why? It's the same place every time. I'm not slowing down. Normally I would chalk that up to like a gear change, but there's no tempo change. It's just getting into that shade. That's better. Shade has to go up and over before coming down. Maybe. I have to make it so angled to not get that little hitch. All right, capital E. Going into that shade just doesn't feel comfortable. It feels very scratchy. I could blame it on the nib, but I don't want to. I should be able to make it work. The nib is rather sharp, but doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to make this stroke. Better. Oi, too low. Come on. Why is that in there? If I travel farther to the left, I can get that kink out, but then my letter is the wrong angle. Oh, what up, Peter? Long time no see. How's it going? It kind of looks like Popeye's chin. Yeah, you're not wrong. I often make the lower bowl on the E far to the left just because that's how I naturally get rid of that little hitch that I have on that shade. If I turn my pen slightly this way, let's experiment. Does this fix it? Oh. Ooh, that was the right idea. Smoothness. I mean, that makes sense. Peter. Remind me what time zone you're in again? Are you all the way on the East Coast? Can't remember exactly where you are. So that letter's not shaped well, but that was the exact feeling of shade I want. Oh, you're in LA. Okay, so it's not that late, but I can't really say that because you have kids. So that changes everything. Okay, so maybe I just have to brute force go for it. Oh, that's a good question. The California Pen Show. I miss going to the LA Pen Show. Hello, Bindu. Kids ruin everything. I don't know that you would be the only parents to joke about that, Peter. Oh, your kids would... Oh, your kids were sick. That's a bummer. Did you go, Marilyn? I would have loved to go, but I did not. California is too far away for me right now. Okay, that's the right shade. Now we just gotta fix the shape of the letter. Yes, Mom, you can remain silent when we're talking about kids ruining everything, seeing as though I'm your kid. Oh, Fairchild, that's nice. Yeah, they are rare. The show looked cool. I haven't heard many people talk about it yet, or haven't asked anybody. But it looked like Mario put on a good show. Oops. Ay, ay, ay. Okay. I wish that had still worked, because the flow of that one felt really good. Oh, that's fun. I mean, yeah, the LA Pen Show as well is always busy, so I imagine the California Pen Show would be quite packed. At least it was open to the public more than one day, like the LA Pen Show always used to be. Ooh, close. Close, close, close. Uh-oh. Sorry to hear that. I suppose that happens. From Mike Daigle. Fun. I saw him in Philly. Nice. Yes. He is a cool guy. Dropping these really low. That's better. idea. That transition still doesn't feel super smooth, though. What's the answer? More speed, perhaps? I don't want to go too fast. Oops. No, the buses kind of do what they do. That is true. LA is a car city, not a bus city. Wait. That's the idea. The shit I wanted. I mean, LAX is tough to get there by bus. I did it a number of times. I would rather never do it. It's nice if you're gonna be if you're planning to attend a show 2 days in a row, or even if you just, in my opinion, want to get the full show experience. It is more expensive, but it always feels like it's worth it to have, or to be in the hotel, or at least somewhere really close by. Just because it feels better. You can hang out with the people at night. Pen shows are like Iampith for me. I like the social aspect of it afterwards. Baltimore? Who went to Baltimore? I've never been to the Baltimore Pen Show. No, I went to the Philly Pen Show. The first pen show of the year. I believe Baltimore is Is Baltimore the second show? I can't remember when Baltimore happens. Come on, shade. Ugh. But the Philadelphia show was dope. I had a good time. I didn't buy any pens, but I got 3 nibs worked on by Gina at Custom Nib Studio, and I love them. But no new pens for me this year. Too far to the left every time. Oh yeah, well, she would. I think she was booked up online like a week, maybe more than that, before the California Pen Show. I think her schedule was fully booked online. I remember seeing them post about it. Yeah, it's a common thing now. Most shows have at least 2 or 3 grinders, which is great. Was Mike Masayama there, Marilyn? So I'm starting to feel like this catch isn't my fault. It's happening where it shouldn't happen. Hello, Benny. Welcome, welcome. CW. I don't know who CW is. I don't know a lot of the nib grinders, though, so that doesn't really mean anything. CY, I mean. I guess Peter said CY. I'm quite good, Benny. How are you? I'm working on the capital E at the moment, and it's bugging me. I don't want to blame my tools, but I'm blaming my tools at the moment. Try to... So lose some of my hairline a little bit, but maybe there is something catching. Or maybe not. Well, hello, Jay. Good evening to you. That's good. It shouldn't be horizontal, though. You know that, right? It should be somewhat the opposite of your 52-degree slant line. Not right flat. Oh, do you mean into it? Like an entry oval? That's what you mean, then I understand. I just now read that you said into the E, so entry oval makes more sense. What are you up to this evening, Jade? Writing? Hanging out? Cooking, like Lurker James is probably doing? Or maybe Lurker James isn't cooking, because his hands are freezing. Okay. Did that do anything? Did it make it worse? Ooh. That was my fault. That is me stressing out, going into the shade. Those of you who don't know, just the other day, how many days ago did I do the nib sharpening demo? Was that on Friday? No. Saturday? Can't remember. Not many days ago, I did a nib tuning demo on Discord that lasted an hour and then ended up hanging out in the Discord Zoom chat or Zoom call for 3 more hours, as is normal for me, I guess. Don't feel like you have to watch it. It's not something you need to do. Yeah, I definitely did not intend to be streaming for 4 hours, but it was nice having people to talk to. I mean, this is nice too, chatting with you guys, but it was nice hearing people's voices talking to me, which was good. Come on. Better. Got you. That's probably a smart choice, I would say. Stay in frame. Hello. No need to apologize. This is only the second stream that I've done since 2023 started. So I too was MIA. Yes, I remember. Nice to see you, Annie. Gonna do a little more work on this capital E. I'm gonna move on to some word writing, I think. Hello, Benjuan. Welcome. Okay, if I could just do it shaded, exactly like that, I'd be very happy. I can't stress enough the importance of doing your letters in hairline, as well as shades. Come on. Too far to the left. Santa Ana, California. Ugly O's. That's better. Get that? It's when I drop in. I don't know if that's not the right term, but oh well. I need to smooth out my touchdown. Jay says, Mike, question about the short turn on the bottom of the minuscules in preparation for the connective stroke. How tight or loose of a turn should that be? So, I believe it is New Spencerian Compendium, but also the Theory of Spencerian Penmanship that discussed this. And it all comes down to what I sort of consider elegance versus rigidity. So if we do some large examples here of essentially not super curved, like on the lowercase n, for example, versus if we're super curved, you get, as you start to curve these a little more, things go from feeling rigid to a little bit more relaxed. But if they relax too much, then they get a little, like this to me feels a little loosey-goosey, for lack of a technical term. So the way I like to think about it is just rounded enough. Like the best analogy I feel like I've ever used is if you take a sharp point like this, if you take like one of the sharp ones and you just really quickly take a piece of sandpaper and just like graze it over the edge, then it just takes that edge off. So for example, something like that same size N, if I were to do, so it's very similar to the rigid one, but it's slightly more curved and then just a little bit more rounded at the last second. And then it is a personal preference thing. There were penmen who, I mean, we rarely write actually Spencerian or ornamental penmanship that big. So there were penmen that would keep things quite rigid even when it was small. So you would go down, and when you're writing small, you don't notice it doesn't feel as rigid because it's quite small. So basically, the smaller you go, what X height are you practicing at, or are you studying at, if you don't mind my asking? The smaller you go, you can almost make it sharp, or you kind of make it sharper to maintain this type of a look. Because it's really easy. Like, let's say I did a curve that was this curved on a letter that's this big, then I get something that is, in my opinion anyways, too round. Things get feeling just slightly too round. But yeah, if you're writing at 4 millimeters, so that's approximately, what are we at? 2, 3, 4, approximately there-ish. I would err on the side of just slightly take the edge off. Just round enough that it's not sharp, if that makes sense. I personally like the look of the slightly sharper, because it looks clean and more precise to me. I feel like when things get too round, they just start to feel too, unruly. Probably not the right word, but they just feel too loosey, too round. And like I said, if you go smaller, it's nice to get in the habit of keeping that sort of sharp lower turn, because it's easy for small writing to get really loose. Good question. Yes, sharp, but just softened sharpness is kind of how I like to think about it. You can see like that curve there, it's sharper than, say, this N, but it is, if I shrink this sharpness or this down, it's sort of equivalent to being just a slightly softened sharp edge. How big am I writing? Normally like this or this one? This is, these big N's are, what are they? 7/32 of an inch. But normally I write, I mean, this is probably, what, 1.5 millimeters? Let's do some natural writing real quick and we'll measure. That would be, is very small. Yeah, so that HX height and the WX height is 1 millimeter. Oh, Annie, so I made one, not the official one, but on my Discord, there is a nib tuning video. I did a live demonstration on Discord on Saturday. It's an hour-long video. To get the link, you need to you have to get the link on the Discord. It's not public on my YouTube, but it is a YouTube video. You can get the link in the Discord. Yeah, it's about an hour long of me talking through my current process. And I do use a microscope. So you can get things like, what does the point of my nib look like? And you can see the very point of a nib. If I can find the point of the nib. Where's the point of the nib? There's the point of the nib. So I show the difference between it when it's stock versus when it's sharpened. Sorry, it's hard to hold it steady under the microscope. But this is, I didn't have it this zoomed in when I was doing it on the Discord, but yeah, I did make that video. It's not the official video that I am making. It's gonna be more in depth and whatnot, but it's a demo. Yeah, nib tuning demo video. You can find the link to it in the tools and supplies channel on the Discord right now, and then I will put that same link into the what's it called, in the OP resources channel eventually. But it's just I say quick, but it's just a casual walkthrough of my current process, taking a factory nib and turning it into, well, the nib that I was working on is the one I'm writing on, or writing with right now. Ah, that's handy, Jay. I need to get some of those. I don't use my microscope when I'm tuning myself. I just use a loop. Having a chill loop is something that I sort of suggest everybody just have, because they're cheap and they're just great to have. If you need to get a close-up really quick look at something, make sure your tines are lining up nicely, and they're just super easy to have right beside you. Well, no, you can't write with a loop. That's true. I wouldn't recommend writing or trying to write with a loop. Do you use the magnifier when you're not just when you're regularly writing? Or do you use them all the time? Magnifying glass glasses. I imagine like in the movie, what is it? In the movie National Treasure, when is it Ben Franklin? No, Thomas Edison? Ben Franklin. George Washington? Can't remember. One of the old presidents they have the glasses in National Treasure that have that magnify and different colors for hidden text on the map on the back of the Declaration of Independence. I imagined having/making a pair of those for myself for fun. Gotta have good paper for good writing. For good question, Annie. Question I get asked quite often. When I'm writing small, which is how I write all the time, when I'm not demonstrating or teaching, any finger movement that I use is subconscious and not intentional. I don't actively try to not use any of my fingers, but I train to not use my fingers and use my hand. So probably the smallest thing, my wrist does some. My fingers do very little. Really the only thing that my fingers are doing most of the time, to my knowledge anyways, is the shades. I do shade with my fingers when I'm writing really tiny. For example, like if I just write like all this, here, let me zoom out so you can actually see my fingers. Go up here, writing a little bit farther away from myself than I normally would, but you guys can see. So my fingers, when I'm writing normally, that was fingers, that little shade on the F. The shade on the G is fingers, but my fingers don't come into play for the letter forms themselves. It's my wrist does a little bit. Admittedly, I will say I drop my wrist more than is traditional. It's a habit that for years I tried to get rid of, but it's just comfortable for me. Would I like to not drop my wrist as much as I do? Yes, but I drop my wrist. But most of the time, my wrist is hovering and my hand doesn't move. Here again, I'll try to come up here so you guys can see. The best way that I can answer that, Annie, is I feel like it's never not okay for anything to come into play. If your fingers are doing work, if your wrist is doing work, if your forearm is doing work, if the writing looks good, it doesn't matter. There were penmen back in the day that used finger movement. There were penmen who didn't use finger movement. There were penmen who used more finger movement than they said they used. I'm certain of it. And there were penmen, like I said, who trained none at all and were absolutely against finger movement, and wrist movement and combination movement and all that. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Experiment with each of them. See what feels good to you, and then expose these liars. Well, I mean, I don't have proof, but you can tell in people's, you can't tell in the writing who uses fingers and who doesn't, but I guarantee pretty much every penman who ever existed used a little bit of finger movement. I do feel like there were a lot of penmen who that finger movement was just subconscious and just the finger sort of lending a hand every now and again. Were there really good ornamental movement penmen who wrote all with their fingers? No, I don't believe so. Because usually when you write with your fingers, you can see in the movement and in the hairline when something is being essentially drawn with the fingers and not written with the hand. But that's not to say that the fingers don't still come into play, especially for shades. Shades are just done with fingers. The shades are way too fine and too intricate to be done with forearm or with the hand going down like you would with a capital letter. They're just way too small. So if anybody tells me that they didn't use fingers for that, they're lying. Basically, I don't believe them. They can show me and prove me wrong, but I don't believe them. I've been doing this for too long to believe that that's actually possible. Is it? Maybe. And if they can prove me wrong, sweet. But they're not here anymore, so they can't prove me wrong. But I really don't think there has to be a camp of no writing or no fingers, no whatever. The writing speaks for itself. However, you have to get it down there. There were penmen that would write really fast. There were penmen that would write fast but stop a lot. There were penmen that would write slightly slower but not stop. And so long as the writing looks good, it's all allowed. All that being said, I do think that in the movement and in the fluidity of the forms, the fingers get in the way of having smooth form. Except for, I know there are penmen who can, or who did and can do, say, like an ascender stroke. Personally, I lock my hand and I do my ascender strokes like so. So my wrist doesn't move, my fingers don't move, nothing moves except for my arm pushes the ascender stroke. Now that doesn't mean that I can't do the same thing with, and now notice my fingers here, I can still get quickness, but I'm using my fingers. I can do essentially the exact same thing with my fingers. I'm not as good as it because I don't practice it very often, but that's still movement because it has speed behind it, but it is my fingers doing it instead of my arm. Personally, I find it easier to use my arm, so I use my arm. There were other penmen who would use their arm, but they would use something that we call hinge movement, where if you notice here, this is push-pull movement. I can tell my arm is going away and back towards myself. But if I were to do this with my arm, bending at the elbow, then that's executing what we would call hinge movement. So if I rotate my paper way like this, so it's downhill on camera, but if I rotate my paper like so, you'll notice then I can use that hinging motion of my arm, which is very natural, and I can use then, again, no fingers, no wrist, and I can use hinge movement to get what are, in my opinion, my best ascenders ever. But I hate rotating the page every time I want to do an ascender. That's ridiculous to me. So I don't use that technique. It is a technique that many penmen would employ. If I was doing a commission or a project for somebody and it needed to be absolutely perfect, maybe I would do that as like a one-off every now and again. But instead, I just train my hand to do my push-pulls and then do the ascender strokes this way. Without my wrists, without my fingers, and just like so. So there's so many ways to do all of them. If you have shaky lines, I mean, lack of speed, lack of drills, lack of practice. Which is it? It's hard to say without actually seeing you write. If your lines are shaky, usually I would say shakiness is lack of speed. If your lines are shaky, then that's lack of speed. If you go a little quicker, it will take the shake out and you'll get wobbly, or what I would, not official term, would be a wonky line. If you get a wonky line, but it's smooth, then you're doing it fast, and then it's just a control issue. That's where drills come into play, drills and practice. So if it's shaky, it's usually speed. If it's wonky, it's usually practice and drilling and getting used to the forms. If you can't draw a form, like let's just say I'm doing lowercase n, if I can't draw that form like perfectly exactly like I want it, then writing it, basically I don't write forms until I can draw them, because drawing them proves to me that I know what I want that form to look like. So then when I do movement, regardless of what kind of movement it is, when I start doing it quickly, come on, nib, I can do that same thing with movement, and then it is fine. It's a very fine difference, but the line here is ever so slightly smoother and finer than the line up here, because one is drawn, one is written with movement. The difference, negligible though. If you are relaxed and very familiar with the form and using good tools and good paper and everything, you can do slow writing that hardly looks different from movement writing. But if you want to have clean movement writing, I say, and this is what in PZ Blozer's book, you draw the forms, and then when you can draw the form perfect, then you start writing the forms. What happens is the shape goes all out of whack. Like you can draw this perfect N, and then you try with movement, and it looks like that. It's a very bad example. That's an extreme example, but it looks crazy like that. But you know what it looks like. So your brain is always thinking about this, and then you slowly practice getting better and better and better until you can do that N the exact same as what you were drawing. Ideally every time with movement. So yeah, shaky lines, speed up. Wonky lines, practice. If your form is off, draw the forms. Ignore the shakiness and ignore the wonkiness. Draw the forms. When you can draw them perfect, then you write them. That's my personal workflow for doing that. Some, like in Tamblin's book, for example, he doesn't talk about drawing the forms. Not all penmen suggested drawing the forms first. Personally, I just think that's smart, because if you can draw the form, it proves to me as your teacher or as the person watching you that your eyes know exactly what they're doing, or your eyes and your brain know what they're trying to create. I tell this to my tap students a lot in my beginner tap classes. I'll explain things, and it takes a while for the feet to get used to the patterning or, whatever we're creating. So I will always ask the question, does it make sense? Whether you can do it or not, does it make sense? That's the important part. If it makes sense, then we can move on. If it doesn't make sense, then you have to ask questions, and we'll review it and clean it up. And that's the equivalent of, if it doesn't make sense, then we draw it. We keep drawing it more, and we break it down till it makes sense. Now, my video is going like slow motion to me sometimes here today. Are you guys experiencing that as well? Every once in a while I see my my little preview going like slow motion. Okay, maybe that's just me. That was a very long-winded answer to your question, Annie, sorry. All that to just basically say, there is no right and wrong. There's just what looks good and what doesn't, basically. Yeah, it might just be my computer going slow. It hasn't dropped any frames or anything on the stream, so don't know. When am I gonna be on Ink Tank? I don't know. Whenever the guys ask me to be on Ink Tank. I know they've mentioned it a couple times. I've told them I'm willing. When it works with their schedule, I'll be on an Ink Tank episode. I don't know what we're gonna talk about or what the topics will be, but I've said it, so I assume they know I'm willing. Oh yeah, our clubhouse. We could do another one of those too. I mean, everybody knows I like talking. It's like I was chatting with the guy who runs the Philadelphia Pen Show with my friend Eric the other day, and he was asking if I wanted to do like a seminar or a talk in Philly. And I said, of course. I like to talk. When I don't schedule things, I end up being live and talking with people for like 4 hours. So if somebody wants to schedule something, I like talking about penmanship. So if those guys want me on Think Tank, I would love to be, or on Ink Tank, I would love to be on Ink Tank. I like talking about this stuff. I know how that goes, Marilyn. I'm also a bit of I can be a bit of a yammerer. That's why I usually do my own things like this, because then I can just yammer on forever and nobody can stop me. Ooh, not a bad capital D. Here's a situation that I run into all the time when I'm writing penmanship, and I wish I had the forethought to think about it before I do it, but do I ever? No. When I do short words, like day, or a word that has a descender, like 2 or 3 letters in, because my descender is going to be right in the way of the horizontal exit oval of the D, which is very frustrating. If I would have thought to myself, you have a Y coming up. Let's make this exit oval shorter, or make it longer so it goes beyond the Y. But I don't do that. So I do something like that to cross it, which is fine. I just wish it wouldn't happen. The descenders just get in the way for me. I could write another word. Yeah, Valentine's Day. I'm not gonna lie, there's a few times in the correspondence letters that I wrote in the past couple days where I just kind of drift off thinking as I'm writing, and I write the wrong word, and then, as I've stated before, I don't like restarting letters, so I just kind of find a new way to word what I was going to say. So some of my wording and sentences are a little bit weird. They get like overly formal because there's a word missing, but instead of just like crossing out and going again, I'll just like make that sentence longer and meander to the point that I was getting to, which that happens quite often, not gonna lie. Because I drift off as I'm writing. I think about what I'm gonna be writing before I actually write the word that I'm supposed to write, so I miss words all the time. The X-height stroke connector. What do you mean, X-height stroke connector? Annie, do I think the holder, pen angle, and paper placement make a difference in ornamental penmanship? Yes, 100%. I think the specifically, not holder, I guess when we're talking about the holder, specifically I'll say flange. The flange angle that your holder is at in relation to how you hold the pen. And it's very dependent on how you hold the pen. Like if I had, say, a more modern grip, then my nib would be at this angle. So I would have to hold the paper, I would have my paper at about this angle. If I was holding it this way. Versus if I use, whoops, I got ink on my glide sheet. Versus if I'm doing a more traditional grip, like I normally write, then I can have my paper at an angle, sort of like so. But it does make a big difference. I'm actually, I don't remember when I mentioned this. It might have been last Tuesday. I've been lately experimenting with a new paper angle, new to me paper angle. And I'm gonna preface this next, I won't call it a rant, but this next tangent, or this next thing that I'm gonna talk too much about, by saying these are tweaks that I recommend playing with and making after you have a good understanding and are very comfortable with ornamental penmanship and with writing in general. I feel like if you make these tweaks too soon, then you don't know why or if they work. So I, for example, tell all my students to start with the, here you can see it up there, or you can't really see, I guess. I have my slant line directly away from my body, 90 degrees to the desk. So when I'm writing here, my nib is aligned with that slant line, and that's how I practice writing. For a while, like that was where I would write, and I found that if I would turn it a little bit to the right, like so it'd be a little bit going off to the right instead of straight away from my body, that made my ascender strokes nicer, because it wasn't hinge movement, but it was just a very comfortable movement for me to do my ascender strokes, which are my worst stroke in penmanship, in my opinion. So I would do those, but then when I would do, say, a capital stem, it put the angle of my nib at the wrong place to do a really good capital stem. I could still do a capital stem, but to get a better capital stem, I would want my pen to be at more of an angle. So, if my paper was directly 90 degrees away from my body or my slant line, then I would get that angle and it would make the stem slightly easier. Lately, over the past couple weeks, I've been playing with going to the left. So lately, my paper has been, the camera is basically set up for where my paper is. So I am, let's say, this ruler is straight away from my body, and my paper is angled a little bit more to the left than that. And that makes my ascenders, my stem strokes feel more natural, but it makes the ascenders become a little bit more challenging. But with training, I have got to the point where my ascenders feel very comfortable at this angle now. So the majority of my writing feels very comfortable at this angle, which is, interestingly enough, about the same if I follow, when I sit down at my desk to write, the angle that my forearm naturally sits at to my writing spot, my writing zone here, if I follow that angle, then that's essentially where my paper is. And is this where my paper angle will stay forever? I'm not exactly sure. But this is where I like it right now, and I'm just experimenting with it. And so far, the experiments have proved good. That's So I will keep doing it for the time being in any case. The connection from a B and a W. Ah, got you. That just takes some practice to get, like, for example, from a B, if we do a large one, you just have, like, if we're going into, I mean, any letter, doesn't matter what we go into. If we're going into an I, it's just an undercurve that is almost a straight line because we're going to about here. So we're just going straight to there. If you have to do that compound curve, it is a slight compound curve. Ink, please. Like so. Almost a straight line. It's really easy for that line to get too curved. You're very welcome, Annie. But it's just another stroke that you have to practice. Into an E, so with the E, you just, you drop a little bit lower. Not as low as you would, you don't get all the way to the baseline. But if you're going into an E, like we can just go from, say, a W this time. You're not going to go way down there because that ends up looking really droopy to get into the E. You're going to just cross your E a little bit higher. Like so. Versus like an E that starts at the baseline. It's going to have a slightly bigger loop than this E, but that's just the way it works. Almost a straight line. For the E, it's almost a straight line, slight undercurve into that little loop. A lot of people want to dip that down because it feels like they need to get the loop on the E. But when you dip it down, you just, then it's no longer following sort of the principles of Spencerian or ornamental penmanship. So if we do like a big large one here, just like so, straight across. And then I will say, this is why we always practice and learn writing like this bigger, because this is a perfect example of like when I say you should be able to draw a form before you can write it. This is way bigger than I would ever do Spencerian or ornamental penmanship, unless I was doing, say, shaded Spencerian or signwriter script. But knowing these forms and what they're supposed to look like in a large format is important, is very helpful, because when you write small, all those variables that I'm saying here are important, they all sort of get lost. So when we do a W to an E at a really small size, like that, this is essentially going to the baseline. But that's because the baseline is less than a millimeter, like we're sitting less than a millimeter off of the baseline to begin with. So to dip down even a little bit, it goes to the baseline. So yeah, when you write small, it's important that you know what you're going for, because it's actually impossible. Well, maybe not impossible, but all those little variables aren't going to be as known. But you want them, you want the nuance of them to live in the writing, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Or just don't write small. I was actually just the other day doing something that I never do. I was practicing doing my I just went through the alphabet. Much larger than I ever do Spencerian or ornamental penmanship. Just for practice. Just doing quite large letters. Which for me, this is huge. Whoops, those are way too far apart. Swing and a miss. I never write big. Unless I'm doing like an engrosser script or a Spencerian signwriter script or something like that, or teaching. But I like for example, my Iamphith, my Spencerian Certificate of Proficiency or of Excellence from Iamphith. I executed that certificate with slow writing. It is smooth slow writing, it's similar to this, but I didn't do the whole thing with movement writing. And I want to apply again with, I don't need a second certificate, so I might not actually apply. I want to create a certificate with movement writing, just basically to see if I can, because I feel like I can, but it's going to be a lot harder, so it's sort of a personal challenge that I want to do for myself to see how close to ideal I can get my forms with beautiful movement writing. But it feels weird to write big for me. Ooh, too round. That's too round at the bottom there. Whoops. Let's do these in the wrong order, shall we? Let's put a Y here, because I entered the U wrong. So we'll do Y, then U, then V, then W, X, and Z. Like so. Alphabet. Yeah. So I have been practicing that a little bit, movement writing a little bit larger, which is something I don't do often for the lowercase letters, because I prefer them like this. Oops. Now what should we write? What do you guys think? I can just keep randomly practicing, or we can do something specific. What you guys feeling? Ooh! Yeah. That's the E that I've been looking for. Brown writing in Victoria? I don't know that I would say those are the hardest words to write. Why are those so hard? I think the hardest word to write and make look really good, well, it's a place, I guess. And it's Z, Z, Y, Z, X. I believe it's a place in Nevada? Zizix? Or a road in Nevada? Or there's also, how do you spell syzygy? I can't remember. S-Y... S-Y-Z-Y... That doesn't sound right. Syzygy. I remember writing that one before because it seemed like it's a very difficult word to write. No, those words aren't hard to write, Marilyn. Yeah, well, let's write them. Brown, writing, and Victoria. I'll write them a little bit bigger, too. A nice ascender. Brown. Writing. Whoops, got in the way of the G there. Victoria. Ooh, I can definitely do that, Skeet. Let me get a new sheet of paper. I mean, that's what I've been trying to figure out, Benny. I don't want to slow... If I slow down, I can always, mostly always, see what I consider my my gear change. I can see when I shift gears, and I can see that little transition point. So I don't like to slow down. Sometimes I do a little bit subconsciously, but I like the idea of not slowing down. Now, Skeet, should it say Happy Anniversary Paula or Happy Anniversary Skeet and Paula? What do you think? That's years and years of practice. I mean, you're not wrong. Whoa! Snap City. Alright. I guess that wasn't really snapping, that was nib catching. Double check my nib real quick and make sure I didn't misalign anything doing that. Silly move. The one downside to tuned nibs. The sharper or finer a nib is, the harder it is to write with, unfortunately. Okay. These tines are separating at the very end for some reason. It's weird. Here, look, I'll show you guys. The very, very end, just the very end, seems to be separating. Or I'm imagining things, but look, don't think I'm imagining things. That's so dark. Wait, go brighter. There we go. Do you see how the very ends, like the very, very tip of the nib, seems to be separating a little bit? And then there's that one you can see on the left tine. The very tip of the left tine is slightly sharp, pointy. Pretty sure that's where my nib woes are coming from. There's the underside of that same nib. Yeah, you can see it's on the left side there. That one tine is slight misalignment, or slightly longer than the other. Misworn, which I could fix, but I'm not gonna worry right now. Okay. What? Oh, we're going full on running hand. Spaced out. Happy anniversary, Paula and Skeet. Yeah, the running hand has been a favorite of mine lately. There. Happy anniversary, Paula and Skeet. 30 years. Booyah. You're not wrong, Marilyn. You're not wrong at all. You're very welcome, Skeet. Slightly off center, but International Correspondence Writing Month. That's this month. February. I have 7 of my 28 letters for the month done. But I hope to keep it going. I need to be much better. Also inspired by David and Gray's letter a week that they've been writing to each other. It's quite impressive. I don't write other penmen very much. Very often, I should say. And I should. Oh, I forgot about my tea. Tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme, cold tea for the mic. Still good. That's an important thing. I've decided I need to start practicing what I preach. I tell people, I've been talking lately, I don't think Jay's still here, but we were talking the other day about writing and not putting so much pressure on the letter writing and just doing it and getting it done. And that is how I used to write letters when I wrote letters a little bit more often, but I fell off the bandwagon long ago. I've been enjoying the letter writing, and it doesn't take me very long to write a letter, so I'm going to try to keep it going. Can I write the Spencerian lowercase c? The traditional, the old C. The old school C, yes, of course. So I don't know that I've ever actually written this letter with movement before. Slowly, the C you're talking about is this one. Like so, which looks dangerously like an E when it's written small. It can look very much like an E if you're not careful, but that's the one. I've never actually written it with movement writing though, with that tiny loop, I don't think. There it is. That's a good one. That's the right angle and everything. So the keys to remember with that E is really, the undercurve goes straight up like you were doing the so I would do the entry very similar to how you would do a lowercase I or a U. Like if we were doing an I, we would have something like that. If I want to turn that into a C, this undercurve would stay the same. And when I get to that top bit, I would just come down, add a loop, slight curve, and there we go. So superimposed, if we had a lowercase I, we could have the same lowercase c, and then the same, this is where the entry curve would change. If we were doing a lowercase e, we would do something like this to then get that same downstroke of the C. So it's like a hybrid between the C or the E and the I, but I would keep, at least when I do it, I don't think about doing anything different for that undercurve. That undercurve remains just a standard undercurve, and then you just have to practice. You can lift from there, and then you just have to practice doing your little Whoops. Doing that little curve on the bottom. Making sure, like this one, you don't get it too round on the bottom. You have a nice, sharper bottom. So it takes up the same amount of space. I mean, as far as connective strokes, the one thing I will also say about connective strokes, it all depends on the width of your writing. Like if you're doing traditional Spencerian, then you have to try to keep things 1 space, 1/4 space for compound curves and things like that. But it's mainly, I like to think about having it more on just uniformity. Because technically, as far as the amount of space they take up, the E and the C should, in theory, be the same. Whoops, picked up a fiber there, I think. Same if I did the newer C, same idea. They all take up the same amount of space for their entry curve. Those are long entry curves. They're more ornamental penmanship than traditional, but... And the turn would be 1/9 of the height of the letter? Oh gosh. Couldn't tell you. Off the top of my head, you'd have to jump into theory of Spencerian penmanship and analyze that. I've never honestly measured. I've done that calculation visually. Like most of the calculations in penmanship, I only really break things down into specifics when I'm teaching them, but I do most of it just visually. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It could be 1/9. I think that seems very specific. I would not be surprised if it was written many times not exactly at 1/9. Depending on the size you're writing, you just want it to be small enough, or you want it to be small but big enough that it's not getting filled in. So if you're writing, like to me that looks, just to my eye, and I don't have a direct reference right beside me, but to me that looks perfect. And the reason it looks what I would consider perfect is the C itself looks like what my eye recognizes as a C. And then this undercurve is just so we can start the letter with an undercurve instead of an overcurve. But like I said, when you write this one small, it's dangerously close to looking like an E. So you have to be careful. And also, those little loops get filled in if you don't have a very, very fine nib or aren't very, very careful when you're writing it tiny. I think the biggest thing that I usually see, we'll say wrong, with most people's C's, if somebody makes an error with the C, it's usually because they rounded out the bottom too much. It's usually because that's too round. That's the most common issue that I see. And that kind of goes with Spencerian in general. I feel like that's the most common issue I see with most people's beginning Spencerian, is not making those turns sharp enough. .23 millimeters. That's 1/6. Ooh, are you practicing for the Spencerian certificate by any chance? Where did you get 1/6 from? Or did you apply for the Spencerian certificate? Yeah. I'll be honest, I don't know why 1/6 is the thing in those rules. It doesn't make any sense to me. 1/6 is such a ridiculous size. It's so hard to measure with a regular ruler. In 2 years, okay. Nice. Yeah, I don't know why it's 1/6, but it is. Will it always be? Who knows? If I had my way, it would not be 1/6. It would just be 1/8, which works. That's very, very close to 1/6. One sixth is just impossible to measure. Ah, got you. Yeah, that makes sense. You have to be a member long enough. You'll do good. You just gotta make it look, just make it precise is basically the best advice I can give you. Take out any of your own personal preferences, things you like, things that are habitual, and just make it look like the book is the best thing I can suggest for that certificate. And if you're not applying for 2 years, you have plenty of time to practice till then. You're following the compendium? Okay, cool. For the actual specimens themselves, when you're making the certificate, be sure to download a copy or to get on your phone or on your computer or to print out a copy of the samples in Theory of Spencerian Penmanship. In that book specifically, I don't know what I'm going to apply for next year. Hopefully I will pass my illuminated border certificate this year and I can do excellence in borders or illumination if that's a thing. If I pass, fingers crossed, who knows? I have failed certificates before, so anything could happen. That's the idea. Or just when he never posts her writing on the Discord or anything. I don't know why. very consistent with this E. I enjoy broad edge, but in doses. I don't find it quite as fun, but it is beautiful, and I do want to be better at many of the broad edge styles, but it's just not as fun. These are all inconsistent in that same spot. I need speed. I don't think you're alone in that, Marilyn. Don't worry. I think everybody's kind of strapped for time these days. Hello, Lam. I think it's a good plan to start writing and start posting Ojaswini. I don't post, but I don't really have a good excuse for not posting. I don't post. I post on my Discord from time to time, but I don't post as much online on Instagram as I should these days. Is that a goal of yours, Marilyn? To do your C's without the entry? With a small loop? Like so? Oof. Am I writing at 48? My slant line on my guide sheet is at 52. But when I write the capital E, my capital E is probably more at like a 48, 45, somewhere around there. But I am trying to write it at a 52. My guide sheet underneath here is 52. My natural writing is more angled, but for the past year or so, I've been trying very hard to straighten that up, so I can write angled when I want to and more straight when I want to, because I don't want things to be habitual. So I've been practicing to write slightly more vertical. That's the idea. horizontal oval is the form that I'm most comfortable with, I think, entering into letters. So I've been practicing these ones to get better at my not so good variations. Too big. Too angled. Not bad. If you're always wanting what you're posting to be perfect, then you're never gonna do any posting ever. And sometimes your writing's gonna be worse than it was. Sometimes it's gonna be better than it was. Just gotta let it be what it's gonna be. It's like parenting, you know? I don't have kids, but I'll say it's like parenting. You can raise your kids, you can do the best job you can, but at the end of the day, you can't control what they're going to do with their life. We train these letter forms, we try to raise them as good as we can, but at the end of the day, they're gonna be what they're gonna be. If we expose them to good education and good role models, ideally, they will go in a path that we want them to. But they might stray. And if they do, we would do more harm than good trying to put them on our path. It's a funny analogy that is only relevant for maybe half of it. I didn't know you had a daughter, Marilyn. Fun. Yeah, I could see that. That makes sense. Okay, I think this last E might be my best one of the evening so far. It's pretty good. I will say the one thing I love about Lupfer or Lupfer's E, Lupfer, and Zayner's as well. It was the... it's just so perfect. But it's this shape. I like that it's not straight. Some penmen, which I really like their work, some penmen could get this right tine to go almost like it get here and go almost straight, and then the left tine would follow this same shape, this nice horizontal oval transitioning in here, so the shade would be huge, but the right tine would essentially just be going, it would be like cutting this corner, but it would never affect this outside. That's the hard part for me, is this outside, this transition point there I have a lot of trouble with. Nice, James. See, but that's baloney, James. We all see your writing lately because you've been posting a lot. Your letters are doing just fine. They're looking rather Ivy League, if I do say so myself. Too far to the left. Oh, come on, James. That's silly talk. Why would you hibernate and deprive the world from seeing your beautiful letter forms? Your beautiful poetry that you've been writing lately. Keep doing it. I mean, you don't have to do a challenge of every day. But I definitely think you should keep writing and posting. And if you don't want to post publicly, send them to me, because I like seeing them. It's one of those moments where I'm remembering to practice what I preach. Jay and I, Wannabe Penman and I, the other day were talking quite a bit about relaxation and taking that moment of, and actually feeling the muscles in your arm and your back and everything rest and be neutral and not at attention before you write. And it just makes such a difference. These forms aren't perfect, obviously, but these last 4 E's, I did that for each of them, and there are no crazy transitions. The forms are all slightly different and inconsistent, but the transition and the ovals going into each other are all very smooth, and that is because of relaxation. It is your best friend. If you can convince your letter form children to go to a yoga retreat and learn to breathe and relax, they will be all the better for it. I'm gonna run with this analogy. We're gonna have a whole line of t-shirts about letter form parenting. I'll be in an Instagram / penmanship hibernation from March till May, but I usually am, because that's when I'm on tour with dance competitions and I don't have a lot of time to write, unfortunately, unless I do it in my hotel after a long day in the theater. So not a real hibernation, but I won't be around quite as much, unfortunately. I'm gonna keep the weekly Discord challenges going, the stroke challenges, whether I do them or not. I'm gonna keep them posting and discussing and talking about them. I don't know that I'll have enough time to actually physically practice them. Whoa, we're getting somewhere. This top part is ugly, but that shade is very nice. We're getting somewhere. Practice is working. What? Why so many Instagram notifications today? Ah. Did I do Japanese? Yeah, I did Japanese today already. We're covered. That's very true, Roger Swinney. That is very true. Oh, maybe I'll try that other poem that we didn't do last week. This week, or that other Luck for Peace. Do I have that here? Or I could try Help, Help, Help again, I guess, since we didn't really get a great example of that last time, or a great finish. Maybe that's what I'll do. Give Help, Help, Help another go. Diminishing the telehealth program. That sounds like not a good thing. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what telehealth program. I don't know what a telehealth program is. My apologies, Marilyn. Are these tines straight? Let's check in the microscope. Ah, Zoom doctors. That one tine is longer. That's very weird. And what are your thoughts on telehealth, Marilyn? Do you like them? I guess, I mean, it might... That's gotta save a lot of in-hospital time. That's gotta make some visits a lot easier, I would imagine. Oh, got you. I did not know that. When you're writing, is your index finger straight up 90 degrees? Or is it whatever your natural writing angle? Index finger 90 degrees. Do you mean like the bend in my index finger? I don't know specifically what you're asking, Annie. My finger is just at whatever is natural hold. Oh, the palm. I still don't believe I know what specifically you're asking. I'm sorry. This is my hand when I write. So when I'm here, I write like so. Like so. Nothing down there really moves. That is my grip. You are very welcome. Hopefully that was helpful. But I was the traditional grip came very easy to me. It was a really easy transition when I went to the knuckle up grip. It feels very comfortable for me. Not everybody feels that way, and I understand. For me, it's comfortable though. Okay, now I have to remember how this help goes. Without getting a nib snap would be lovely. Something like that. Minus my disappearing hairlines. This first one always. This first one never looks good. This first one doesn't come up quick enough. Help, help, help. Practice. We don't have room to do the whole thing, but we can practice the first strokes. That's actually pretty good right there, if I do say so myself. Decent anyways. Be nice if this came down a little more, but... Oh, this doesn't go far enough, because it's supposed to be what crosses the H. Crap. I take back what I said before. Needs to be a line there. Not enough space. Okay. Screaming hell. Just getting that spacing is so challenging. Okay, that's okay, so that's not... I keep thinking I'm going farther here and I can't do that. I have to come back so that that crosses low. Okay. Noted. Nervous at the end and messed up. I should have trusted myself. not low enough. But we got that cross of the H in the right spot. So that's good. Get that sorted. Need to take up a little bit more vertical, space, I think. Ugly ovals. Ugly, ugly ovals. Yep, I'm gonna have to do those ovals in whole arm movement. It's decided they are too big for me to do with my forearm. And like that should be a decent start. But this has to be whole arm. Meshed up. But what's not how you spell what? Help? Or horizontal? Shoot! Airline. Oops, I'm not even in super off cam, sorry. I did all of these with the exception of the lowercase letters with whole arm movement so far. the best one so far, I think. Lost a couple of hairlines here or there. But that's the best, smoothest oval one. Darn you. Snap. Snaps happen. Why so snappy? I just did all of those flourishes first. And added all the lowercase afterwards. Too long, though. Definitely better than last week. But we can do better. I think. This one got way too high. Oops. I definitely have a tendency of just floating up this way when I try to do those big flourishes. I also have to start getting in the habit of shading these little guys while I'm going. Just those two, right? Yeah. Just those two little accent shades. This needs to drop lower. Okay. Chipping away at it. Slowly chipping away at it. Dangerously close together. Damn. Another passable attempt, I would say, but not quite as good as I would like it to be. We're gonna try one more, and then I'm gonna call it a night, I think. My arm is tired. And my nib is rather snappy. Unfortunately. With whole arm movement anyways. I gotta get back in the habit of practicing more whole arm. These tines aren't even touching at the end. They're just going like, "What?" Which is really weird. I don't really know why they're doing that. Or how to... Can I even fix something like that? Can I bend them this way? Touch. Bend in at the tip, not out. I don't feel like I've ever had a nib do this. Did I ruin it? Why no black leg? I don't know. It's late night. Chat seems a little sleepy tonight. Good night, Skeet. Here, I'm gonna still write this. I'm gonna try this one more time. So long as this nib will still write. I tried to bend the tines back in. Never tried to make that adjustment before, so this might be painful. We'll see. Or maybe it'll be magical. And everything will be perfect. You think? Or it won't make a line at all. Come on. It feels smoother than it did, but unfortunately, the tines might be pressing too tight together on the end now. Oopsies. At the very tips might be just going too much. Maybe. This is how we learn. Okay. Those hairlines are way too fine. Try go horizontal. Can I go up the page? That time was a bit of a bust. This nib might be dead now. Maybe. They're probably way too close together. But, oh, and I was off frame, sorry. It's a bust. I would say our best attempt, probably that one. I'm gonna keep working at this one though, because I feel like I can do better. Doesn't seem like the smartest idea though, James, to not get more than 2 hours of sleep. I will say, so after last week's stream, I know I posted this on Discord, but probably not everybody saw it. I redid the piece that we did during the stream, that piece on Running Hand by HB Lehman, or Lemon, and I'm very happy with the result. This is the result of the second one that I did. Like I said, I posted it on Discord, but super happy with this one. I still want to do another one. The one thing that isn't as good on this one as on the one we did during the late night live was the for some reason on my exit strokes, for example, like coming this compound curve here is wonky, this compound curve wonky, crossing this T, too much, we got fiber or something on the top there. Other one, there was a bunch of those. This Y, the one that I did on stream, my descenders and exit strokes were much smoother, whereas this one, I don't know why, I stressed out a little bit while doing them. So there's so many wonky exit opals. The lowercase themselves, the lettering and the spacing and all that is much better, but well, the 1G, where are you talking about? This one here, this top one, it goes through the line. So you can see here, like this line goes into the P, and then this one doesn't. I drew the underlines, I wrote the underlines the same as he did. So like the line goes through the G, it goes into this P, and then it goes around this P. It goes, there's a space here for who knows what reason. There's no letter or anything there. The descender of the D, the space is after that. I don't know exactly why he did that. You would assume that they were supposed to be like this one, like everyone stop for the line, but a lot of them don't. I don't know if when he was underlining with his ruler, if his ruler was covering his writing or he couldn't see properly. But yes, I agree, it doesn't make any sense. Like how much space there is before the F, and then this one's really close. It's almost like he did the line, he was guessing where the spaces were gonna be or something. Like he wanted the P to fit in there, but it didn't, so it goes through the P. But I will probably eventually do this one again and underline it the way that I think it should be underlined. But this one is underlined as close as I could to the way he underlined his. So through the P, dodging that P, etc, etc. I really like this G exit stroke. I wish all the exit strokes were as smooth as that one. But yeah, for some reason my exit strokes and the fluid, the finessey strokes just aren't as good on this piece as the one that I did when I was on stream. But that's the way it goes. But I was really happy with this one in any case, and I'm going to redo it at some point. I'll keep redoing it, because I like it. Thank you very much, everybody, for hanging out with me. Sorry that we're not going into the black light, but I'm tired. My stomach's making gurgly noises. I'm not hungry, but stomach's feeling gurgly tonight. Not freehand line, no, I used a ruler, and then same nib to line everything, to be careful to not let ink get on the lid or get on the ruler. But yeah, it seems like chat's a little sleepy, so we can call it a night tonight. Thank you very much for hanging out with me, everybody. Please make sure that you are falling in love with this process, because it is fun. It's fun to go through. It's a fun adventure. If you get to where you're going, awesome. If you don't, it's a lot of cool things to see along the way. So thank you very much. Don't forget, everybody, that life should be just a bit of silliness, really. Good night. And broadcast.